Okay, now there's a couple of things that I would like to talk to you about today in terms of what we're going to be covering in this session. So the first thing that I'm going to do is housekeeping. Now that just basically is that this is a Zoom webinar. It is live. I cannot see you. I cannot hear you. So please, please, please use the chat function so that if you want to ask me any questions, any Q&A, anything like that, just get in touch with me and I will make sure that I have a look at that. If there happens to be any questions that I can't answer, no problem at all. I'll just get in contact with you separately about this. But please, anything you think of, you know, don't wait until the end, just pop it in. That's no problem at all. Okay, so I'm going to run a poll just because I want to see the audience that I have here live, because that helps me to specifically tailor the content so that you get the best experience. And we're going to cover about how you can improve your email marketing. We're going to look at subject headers. We're going to look at the importance of pre-headers. We're going to look at personalization, positioning to improve performance, and that's around how you position your message, and also how you measure your performance. And then if we have any questions, we'll answer those if you want to talk to me separately. No problem. Okay, so without further ado, let's begin. Who am I? Who am I that's been talking? So my name's Lou Peck. This is my lockdown hair. I'm the CEO of the International Bunch, and we are a specialist scholarly communications consultancy. We work with funders, societies, publishers, libraries, basically service providers, all of those in the whole ecosystem. I personally am chair of CILIP Cymru Wales Committee, as well as the ALPS Membership and Marketing Committee. So I work on the publishing side and on the library side, giving back to both. Also, I'm a business mentor with ALPS, as well as doing Business Wales mentoring. And I've been in the industry for about 21 years. So I hope that today you're going to find what we talk about really insightful, and that you are at least going to have some takeaways that you can go straight home with and start applying to what you do. So without further ado, I'd like to begin by doing the poll. And the poll that I would like to ask you is specifically just, who do you work for? Now, those of you that are watching us live, of course, you're not able to see this, or even partake in it. But it would be really great just to get a sense of the type of audience that we've got here. So if you can complete that for me, that should have appeared up on your screen. I'm going to have a sneaky little bit of my coffee, even though it is about 7 minutes past 2 in the afternoon. And I don't really like coffee, but lockdown I do. Okay, great. All right, so that's really interesting for me to see that we've got people here from the industry, from a mixture of different organizations. Okay, fabulous. Thank you so much. Right, so one of the first things that I want to talk to you about is connection. Now, some of this information has come from InfoBit customer survey. So it does specifically relate to what they do as a service provider, but it's really interesting to add some context. So we are looking at how the industry is changing, and actually companies and organizations now are going back to basics and rethinking their messaging strategies. So if you've heard of like Simon Sinek, for example, and if you haven't, please check out Simon Sinek. So it's S-I-N-E-K. And it's all about the storytelling approach, and it's making sure that whatever content that you're writing has value to it, to the recipient, and that it's really is going to resonate with them. And that's incredibly important, especially in this day and age that we find ourselves a year later on from being in this pandemic. So it's about the human connection, the emotional connection. Content has to matter. And it has to be valuable. You don't just want to send something just because you hope that someone's going to read a bit of it. You know, you want them to take that time and feel like it's been a useful part of their day to do that. You know, people are so busy. So 74% of customers from this survey found that business lacked personalized human connection. And that's really important messaging, because if you think about what you receive in your inbox, can you say the same? And actually, you probably might. it misses the human touch. So this missing human touch can really alienate, and it says here, more than half of the customer base. So even if you're not a commercial organization, say you're a library and you have your patrons or your users, you may not call them customers. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. But in this sense, just take customers being your target audience. But just think, by adding that human touch element into your messaging, you're actually alienating more than half your customer database. That's a bit like producing videos for social media, and 85% of those are watched without sound. So you're immediately alienating not just the people who have a disability that prevents them from hearing, but also from anyone who does not have their sound turned on. 54% of the customers that took part in this survey said that an impersonal, generic messaging, it annoyed them. And 47% had ignored impersonalized messages. So you're talking about, how can I attract the attention of that person? Stop sending them just generic stuff. 74% said that they did not receive personalized messages from brands. And the interesting thing is without delving into that research, is maybe they didn't even realize that they might have received a personalized message from the brand, because the subject header or the pre-header didn't tempt them enough, didn't entice or compel them enough to go in. Okay, so let's have a look. Now, the power of email marketing. Now, email marketing sometimes is an area that people will fall back on, and they'll say, oh, I've got to send all these emails. Mass marketing is done, it's gone, forget it. It's not about how many people can you email. It's about emailing the right people with the right message through the right channel. And that's actually not just emailing them, but contacting them. So email is one of those channels. But it shouldn't always be your first port of call. But don't underestimate email marketing. Even though social media has seen significant growth, some segments, some target audiences prefer email marketing. And I'm going to cover that in just a moment. So you really, really, really must measure your niche's audience response. So your niche is whoever your specific target audience is. And rather than saying it's everybody, actually you need to hone down on someone specifically. So for us, for example, that's marketers who work in academic publishing and scholarly communications, because a lot of the content that we produce will very much resonate with them. It's not about us resonating with marketers who work for agricultural companies, for example, even though we have an agricultural client. So also you need to be thinking about your return on investment. Now, email actually can have really, really great return on investment. I've given a figure here. When you just look at return on investment in terms of monetary value, so cost, £32 returned for every £1 spent. Or maybe you work it out that for every email you sent, it costs you 5p. Or of course, I'm talking in British pounds here, but that could be, equivalent to whatever it is in your currency. Are you doing emails that are not just sending one email out? Are you doing it part of an overarching multi-touch campaign, or even much larger campaign that is continually flowing and happening? That's not something I'm going to cover today, but it just gives you an idea. And you'll find that now a lot of organizations are moving away from just sending out one email. They'll be sending out, say, for example, like a webinar, you might send out an email, then a reminder, and then a final reminder. So that's 3 emails. Anything more than one is going to be multi-touch. You're touching them at more times. 80% of email marketers have seen an increase in email engagement over the past 12 months, with 35% of marketers sending 3 to 5 emails per week to their customers. Now, I have a black hole that my email goes into because I receive so many emails. And someone nearly screamed at me the other day because they saw that I had over 13,000 unread emails in my inbox. Yes, that's bad. But that's also because I get a lot of junk through. So now when I sign up to stuff, I sign up using a different email. So it all goes in there. And I've just got a lot of tidying up and unsubscribing to do. And also because I end up on like random lists as well. So 3 to 5 emails, do you know what? When you work with academic publishers. Actually 3 to 5 emails potentially every week could be a lot, because you've got to coordinate with other marketeers and other departments who are sending emails to those same people. Actually, how many emails are those people actually receiving from your organization? So how many emails is a researcher receiving, as well as from the other publishers and the other service providers? You'll start finding that they're receiving 20, 30 emails a week, as well as everything else. It just becomes too much. But there are safeguards that you can put in place to stop people getting so many emails from you. For example, you could set something up in your system so that a individual at any time will only get, maximum 3 emails from you a week. And then you've got to think about service messaging too, ones that come out when they're going through your various systems. Segmentation is a really important thing to think about. I'm not going to go into this in any depth, but there is one area that I wanted you to cover because I felt it was important from a generic sense for email marketing. Now that is that if you categorize people by generation, and the reason that there are different figures showing on here is because I got some conflicting information from different sources, so I thought I'd just cover myself. But basically, you've got these different generations: the silent generation, baby boomer generation, Generation X, Xennials, Millennials, or Gen Y, and Gen Next, and iGen, and Gen Z, or Centennials. So you can see that everyone is put into a specific category in terms of generation. Why is that important? Well, we can see here that if you are a Xennial or a Gen Xers, you're more comfortable with mobile first comms now, but you do prefer email. And of course, this is generic. You might say, that's not right for me, Lou. A third of baby boomers prefer email. So baby boomers, if anyone's born between 1946 and 1964, and the first one I talked about would be anyone that's born in between 1975 and 1965 and 1965 and 1985. So I fall into that bracket. A fifth of Gen Zenners prefer email. So it seems like the older the person, be up to a certain point, the more the preference is for email. The younger the generation, the more preference there is going to be to other sources like social media. So the other thing I want to just show you, I just thought that this was great, is that in 2000, it was recorded that the average attention span of a human was 12 seconds. Now, the average attention span of a human in 2013, which was the last time this was done, is 8 seconds. Imagine now, after a pandemic in 2021, 8 years later. Now, 9 seconds is the attention span of a goldfish. We have less attention span than a goldfish. So let's get into the stuff where you're going to learn some good stuff. So subject lines. Now, this is one of the most important elements of your email. You've got to think that this is about where you're going to actually get the someone to open your email to start reading your message. So 33% of email recipients open an email based on the subject line alone. Sometimes it could be because of who it's from. So take time to craft something that really matters. Remember, the content really matters. Create something that's valuable so people feel that when they're reading it and they're very busy, that, yeah, that was a good use of my time. And grab attention. You want to talk to your niche. You want to, if you sell to them, sell directly to them. You want to announce information. And in your subject line, as well as your pre-header, you want to give them enough information to entice them, to compel them to open. But you don't want to give them too much information that you tell them everything and then they don't open it. So this is just an example. We use MailChimp, and this is an example that as a tool, MailChimp is great for giving us hints and tips. So for our newsletter, we're going to be trialing out lots of different headers and preview text, which is a pre-header. And so it'll give you ideas like, keep your subject lines less than 9 words, or emojis are great, but, in small quantities. Space is limited, so why not keep this, to small characters? Great, that's impressive. And then you'll also notice that there's a character count. So it's giving you a guidance of what it terms to be the best number of characters. Don't have MailChimp? It's okay, because we're going to give you that information as well. So state the announcement of what it is that you want to get across as clearly as you can, but do avoid negative language or anything that's overly sensational. So don't use things like avoid, cancel, bad, make money fast. God, that sounds so 80s to me. You won. Target a subject line to be under 50 characters. And MailChimp, for example, as you just saw there, recommends under 9 words. Limit the use of exclamation marks to 1 instance. I absolutely find them very annoying. They're a bit of a bugbear of mine, exclamation marks, especially when I see them throughout the content body. If you think of charities, charities don't go around with their sentences putting exclamation marks at the end of them. Their sentences are so impactful, they don't need them. So why not make what you're writing impactful enough without needing an exclamation mark, or just have one? Evaluate your subject line by excitement, urgency, and promise as well. With these tools, email tools that you have, sometimes they can help you as well with giving you recommendations or ideas. There are also tools out there that can give you ideas about what would be a good subject line. I think I know HubSpot does that for blogs. It might do that for email subjects as well. But that's a good tool to use, though. You find that when you start going through, like I go through a lot of them, you see that it begins to follow a certain pattern, and some of them begin to sound the same. Subject lines, they're very limited, which we talked about. So really you have to capture the purpose of your email in the first 5 words as subject line. Remember, we talked about people's attention span is supposed to be 8 seconds. So think about relevance, think about curiosity. How can you make them curious? How does your subject line connect to what the reader actually wants and something that they've done? And how can your subject line tease your email content without giving everything away? So we've got 5 ways that you can make people curious. One is questions, so use a question format. The other is unfinished stories, so start writing something that makes them curious, but the rest of it is in the email content. Write something that's unexpected, that grabs their attention. Imply you have information that they don't, so then people are like, oh, I need that. Or imply that they have information that they've forgotten that ultimately you're going to help them with. Now, I went into my emails yesterday to give you a few ideas and hints and tips. And I just thought, oh, ResearchGate's an interesting example. Lou, people are reading your work. Great. And then afterwards, Lou, people are reading your work. And then Lou Peck. And then your weekly stats report is here. View report, the message process. And it's like, oh, that's, there's a reason I don't open that. There's a reason I don't engage with it. I love the first part, but then they've lost me. So valuable context encourages opens. And short and attention grabbing shows more insight than your subject line. Now, this is about how you can provide text that's going to work with your subject line. In this example I give you here, Lou, people are reading your work. Great subject line. Next one is a repeat. I'm gone. I'm busy. I've lost. And also because I get the same thing all the time, I know what it is. And I do see, Lou, people are reading your work, and I'm like, great. But I just ignore it. Entice them, your customers, your target audience, to open using, I don't know, you could say like free shipping or samples if you wanted to in your pre-header. Or tell them exactly what they can expect to find inside the email. It's also a great place to express some brand personality. Now, those of you that have registered for this session, you get access to our hidden, as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, we have a number of our webinars that after some time get hidden because they go into training courses. But those who've registered get permanent access to them. So we have a storytelling webinar that was now hidden because we have a course that focused purely on that. And what we'll do is we'll send those that registered this session, we'll send you a link to the storytelling masterclass because that talks about tone of voice, that talks about how you can make sure that you resonate. It's really, really great webinar, just to inspire you and give you ideas. So I've got a couple of things that I want to cover here. So we've got some standard text. Now this reminds me of something that I get in my personal inbox all the time from a company I used to work for. So they inspired this. It's not very inspiring. New ebooks now available, and then pre-header, like, you know, it could be something like, choose from our latest selection of ebooks, click here to view it online. I mean, you know, that it doesn't really inspire me. I'm like, what new books, you know, what relevance is that for me? I'm busy. So you could have something like, do you like to relax with a good book? And then your pre-header could be something like, we bet you do. Here's 10 new books to whet your appetite. Something like that. So you can be playful. Just ensure you have a tone of voice that comes across. Don't talk like a robot. Just make sure that you resonate. It's that human connection is really important, but also understanding, you know, that some people really love their books, for example, and how you can entice them. And I just did that super quick yesterday, so that wasn't very inspiring. So also another couple of little tips is to personalize the from name. Don't just have, like, you know, from customer services or whatever. Have a person. If you are thinking, well, people change in the team, how can we make sure it's always the same person? Then have a name that represents support. Have a name like, I don't know, Brenda. So Brenda always signs off everything, but everyone starts thinking about Brenda. Do not use do not reply at. I find that so frustrating personally. It really puts me off a company. I find, what's the point of sending me an email if you don't want a response back, or I can't respond back to you via email? I find that quite lazy personally, and it really puts me off a company. So they've got some examples here of what it looks like in mobile view. Of course, this is like an iOS mobile view, but I have Android, and my Samsung, you know, pretty much looks like that anyway, so that's fine. So what we're doing is we're giving you examples here. On the left-hand side, we've got these two screenshots, and one is showing with the pre-header text. So you've got TJC e-marketing is who it's from, and then a fresh look at email marketing is the subject header, and then the pre-header is put your sales message directly into the inbox of your prospects and customers. How do you ... So that gives you, you know, good information, and hopefully you'll click through. Without that pre-header, TJC marketing, a fresh look at email marketing. Got your who is it from, got your subject header there, and then it says not displaying correctly, view this message online, blah, 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 blah. That's, and for someone that's also reading things on a screen reader, you've got to be thinking, how are they reading these? So it's important that you have this information there to give enough information to entice them to open the email. And also, how are your emails actually appearing in people's inboxes? This is my inbox from yesterday that I thought I'd add in. I really like the OASPA one, Major OA Diamond Journal Study Completed. Report emphasizes diversity and sustainable pathways for Diamond Open Access. Of course, now you see, view this email, blah, 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 because if you don't have enough characters in your pre-header, it starts pulling in content from your email. So that's something for you to be mindful of. And then as you go down through this, you know, you can start seeing some other examples of what others have done. I mean, the FeedSpot Digest, I don't even know what that is, but the FeedSpot Digest is just says, you know, view in browser. I mean, what a wasted opportunity. So if you are doing that at the moment, you know that you've got a quick fix that you can change. So some pre-header tips: add a call to action. Don't repeat the subject line. We already looked at that as an example. Make your subject line and pre-header work together. Very important. Use a pre-header to build or continue curiosity. Think about your character length. So for example, for a pre-header, between 40 and 130 characters long is a good amount. And think about both on your desktop and your mobile email clients. Now, MailChimp, for example, gives you up to a maximum of 150 characters, but that doesn't mean that you should use it all. Though do remember what I mentioned about it pulling in text from your email copy. Rule of thumb, around 100 characters, but the most important points, have them at the beginning. Like we talked about that earlier. especially like with a subject header. You know, you're capturing people's attention for a very short amount of time, and then you may never capture it again. On many desktop clients, the length of your email subject line determines also how much the preview text is displayed. Mobile email clients can show less of your pre-header text, so maybe 30 to 55 characters long. And if your preview text is too short, email clients may pull in the text from the start of the email, which I showed you as an example. So just going back to the ResearchGate example here, if I click in that email, this is what I see. So you can say at the top here, it says, Lou, people are reading your work, subject, pre-header, Lou, people are reading your work, duplicate, Lou Peck. And then it goes, your weekly stats report is here. And you can see it's pulling in that information from the actual body copy, and then there's just a button to view report. But I don't go into there. Personalization. Personalizing your content, and as I talked to you about, ensuring that you have a message that resonates, it leads to 50%, it can lead to a 50% increase in order value, and that is a specific source from BigCommerce. Now that's quite considerable. So tailor your message to your niche, and you have to really understand who is my niche, who are going to be my niche, and reflect that personality. Or maybe it's a segment of your market, your niche. Avoid a one-size-fits-all approach, because it just doesn't work. That's why niche marketing is what works so well and is so compelling. Create email content variation based on segmentation. So I've talked about segmentation a few times, but segmentation is when you literally get your list and you segment it into different ways, whether that's demographics, whether that's to do with their likes, their dislikes, different things, and then you can tailor your messaging specifically. And leverage built-in email functionality to personalize as well. So for example, with MailChimp, when we send out our email communications, we include the merge tag first name because that pops it in the subject line. So ultimately that person knows I have their name. So it's not like we're going in totally cold, and actually our communications are opted in. So recognize time zones as well if you're working with a global audience. Also think about localized content. Now, when I do these sessions, I like to present not with a lot of text, to be honest. I personally prefer pictures, and I personally prefer to talk and have a conversation with you. Well, except that you're not talking back to me unless you add something in the Q&A or in the chat. So, but when you're working with an audience that spans a globe like we are, we have to be mindful about accessibility and about how we're accommodating the delivery of our content for different numbers of people. So, for example, if I'm speaking quickly and I'm talking and I'm doing this session and someone is seeing this and they are, let's say, for example, English is not their first language, they may want to actually see text on the screen so that they can read it. And I know that, for example, when we present in China, we make sure that we actually have more text on the screen so that people can easily follow what we're talking about. And also when we're presenting, it's important that when an image comes up on the screen, you describe that image, because if someone actually can't physically see your screen, it's hard for them to be engaged and involved in your session. Email copy, it should be valuable. Mostly keep it short, concise and personalized. I say mostly short is that there are instances for some emails where you have much longer text, but honestly, just keep it short. You want someone to go in there and complete an action, like I want you to subscribe to something, I want you to buy something, I want you to go here and look at this, I want you to register for my webinar. You don't want to give them a whole mass load of text. You want to send them somewhere to convert them, go to that page for them then to go and do whatever it is you want them to do. But your email is about enticing them to do something. You can use AI and data analysis, any analytics that you have about their behaviors, about who they are, to really help to segment your data as well, which we talked about earlier, but also to better understand their preferences. You know, Google does that really well, and Facebook, unfortunately, does it really well too. I watched that film the other day. I think it was called The Social Experiment. And actually, I was quite disturbed when I realized probably how much information someone like Facebook has around me and my likes. Add the from name as a person, which we talked about as well, and sign off as a person. You know, they want to know who you are. So last things about personalization. I've got a couple of examples here. This is just one to give you a bit of an idea what Uber does. Uber does this year in review, which is called year in the review. I'm doing little quote symbols. And they'll just say, you know, this is days since you joined us, miles that you've traveled with us, your general rating. It's a bit more, it's a bit like retention and customer loyalty and getting you to re-engage. But it's very personalized. Jack Wills, which is a clothes company, they have an email that goes out if you abandon your cart. I'm great at abandoning my carts. And so they'll send out something that's timely and relevant, and they get people to come back in. And strategically, why did they do that? They wanted to minimize the number of abandoned cart orders that they had, and they also wanted to drive people back to purchase even more. So what they do is that with this as well, then they'll say, you know, come back to your cart with these items, but hey, what about these items too? So that just gives you an idea. Now, there are loads of examples on the web, and I would say just start having a look when you're thinking about looking at it, because they change all the time. There's lots of great templates as well that you can use, or examples of how best you can structure your email. But poorly thought out emails, they do lead to low engagement. And if you lose someone initially, lose their interest, you may never get them back. And that's very important. And you may also encourage a high number of unsubscribes as well. Now, tell people exactly what to expect and what they've signed up for. Use a clear call to action. Remember that word again. You may see it written as CTA as well. Think beyond basic click here messages. You've got to use actionable text. So positive action verbs, remember we said don't use negative. They're more likely to encourage a response. Though, of course, some messages do require more urgent action. And that might be if you're sending out something to say your service is about to be cancelled. So that's not necessarily going to be positive in terms of action verbs, but they can do something positive like stop it being cancelled. So make sure your marketing emails are clear, they're accessible on multiple devices. So if you use different email services, they can help you with that. And then especially be thinking about mobile use, because of so many emails are now viewed on mobiles, and also with screen readers as well. Now, don't cram too much into the body copy of an email. That is often people's biggest mistake, because they just want to get so much information across. But actually, if you're going to send them to a web page, for example, you can have all the information on there, and you can change information on a web page straight away. Once you send an email out, it's out. You can't change that information. Don't have too many underlined hyperlinks in the text. It looks messy, and also it can be hard to click on a mobile device. Place your call to action above the fold, above the top, with contrasting colors, and separate it from your main body copy to improve the accessibility. Now, in a few weeks' time, we are going to have an accessibility podcast with a couple of people talking about how to improve marketing communications in terms of thinking about accessibility. We do actually have a webinar on something like that, which talks about the social model of disability. That is on our YouTube channel. Now, it'll be very interesting when we talk to our industry colleagues further about their hints and tips, because I remember, like, when we talk about contrasting colors, it's about sometimes they have to reverse what they see on the screen so that they can actually read what's on the screen if they have some visual impairments, as an example. So finish the email with a repeated call to action. You could also try, shall I do a link? Shall I do a button? Test them. See which one works best. See which one people are clicking on. Your email provider, like MailChimp for us, will tell us which links get clicked on. Over 20% of marketers say that email design combining images and HTML is improving their email engagement. But if you are adding images, make sure that you're putting an alt text in. That's really important. And if you know anything about what's about to happen with Google and SEO, having alt text on your images is going to be incredibly important for search engine optimization and your ranking. Now, I'm not going to go through each of these, but I did want to show you that we've got a number of different ways that you can analyze your metrics. Now you will get access to this. We're going to provide a blog post about this as well. But there's lots of different ways that you can analyze your email performance. But you need to have benchmarks in the industry to do that, or start creating your own benchmarks, which you'll eventually have like annual benchmarks that you can look at year on year. So like that's email open rate, your click-through rate are usually the biggest, for example. We've got overall ROI here, but that's just purely done on monetary value. Actually, if you wanted to get more complicated and more in depth, then you start thinking about what's the resource cost, what's the system cost. You start looking at lots of different things when you're thinking about what are you investing in the campaign, which can give you a much truer picture. So when you look at click-through rate, actually, what will I say? Think about what's unique and what's engaged. So I said earlier, mass email marketing's done, it's gone. It's about niche. It's about resonating with those people and engaging with those people that you have on your list that have taken time to subscribe to your list. So rather than just looking at, when you look at an example here that says of emails delivered, click-through rate, number of emails delivered, number of click-throughs, what you actually want to be looking at is of those that open the email, how many then went on to click through? So so number of emails delivered could be actually number of emails opened. And that means that of those people that actually took the time to open your email, how many of them then went on to click through? That's a much better one to look at. And that's when you start thinking about the health of your list, and you start thinking about, hey, look, I've got people on this list who haven't connected or engaged with us in a year. What am I going to do with those people? Am I just going to leave them there? So start thinking as well about, your unique click-throughs. So sometimes what these email systems do is that they'll count like the number of times your links have been clicked in an email, but actually maybe one person has clicked multiple times because they've opened that email up 5 times and they've clicked 10 times. So what you want to do is like the number of unique click-throughs. So it'll give you a much better representation and picture. So when I looked at our email stats yesterday to get the most up-to-date view, our average open rate, OR, we love an acronym, is 40%. Our specific industry is 20%. Our average click-through rate is 12%. Our industry is 8%. And this is for all the different types of emails that we send out for all of the time that we've been in operation. And our average click-through open rate, which is our average click to open rate, which is where of those people who've actually opened the email and then gone on to click, is 23%. So you can see that's nearly double that of the average CTR. So 23% of those people that go into our emails will click through. Just depends what the call to action is. Maybe it's informative, maybe we're asking them to action things. But that's our overarching, and then we can create, if we want to, benchmarks for what do our newsletters do, what do our webinar emails do, or our event emails. So look for industry benchmarks. There are lots of them out there. It is quite hard to find niche industry benchmarks, and also create your own, so you're using your own KPIs. Test, test, test. I should have this like flashing, to be honest, but absolutely test what you're doing. Do A/B testing. Test on like what the length of the emails are, the times and the days you send out, like who's opening them. These service providers that we have now can be very smart in terms of the intelligence that they give us. Make sure that you're testing in terms of personalization, your subject headers, your pre-headers. Are you segmenting? Test to see what those messages are like with different audiences. Use emojis if you want to, social media. But don't go crazy. Well, it depends on the demographic though, doesn't it? Depends on the generation. Maybe use urgent language. Look at your look at all your emails that are going out and seeing if you've got any outliers that sit in terms of where they sit on the benchmarks and why did they perform so well. And this is really, really important, because stop doing what isn't working. Test what you're doing to make sure that you're doing the right thing. If you stop doing something and realize you made a mistake, go back to doing what you did before. It's absolutely fine. It's about being agile in your approach, and it's about doing what you need to do that's working with the market as it is right now, or working or communicating in the best way possible. And the only way that you can do that is by testing and analyzing and just making sure that you're keeping abreast of where you need to be. So as we come to the end of this presentation, I want to just give you a couple of additional tips. Please do pop anything in the Q&A box if you want to. I'm just going to take a quick little sip. I love it that it said, take a quick little set, and I said, sip. There we go. So let's go through these additional tips. Keep a clean list. Your health of your list that you send your emails to is very important, and you need to ensure that you're keeping it clean, that you're sending it to people that are engaged, actually want to hear from you. Forget about mass emailing. Don't spam people. So if you're working in a wider organization, ensure that you have a way that you are coordinating with others to find out when you're all posting different stuff, that you have a scheduled way that you're doing it, so you're not bombarding the same people. Maybe, as I mentioned earlier, you've also got specific blockers in place that if someone gets more than 2 emails in a week, marketing emails, that actually they don't get another for another week. Share your learnings with each other. It's really important. You know, talk to each other, communicate with each other, and also consider those that are not engaged, which I mentioned just before. Send them an email campaign to say, we haven't heard from you, or you haven't, is our newsletter even of interest to you because you haven't clicked on it for most recently, or in the last year. Do you just want to unsubscribe? Are we not producing what you like? You know, whatever your, I mean, it's just coming off the top of my head, so it's just, you know, rubbish. But think about a campaign to re-engage them and to get them to recognize how valuable your content is, or if they don't respond, then you'll unsubscribe them. I went through a database cleanse last year where we contacted a whole load of people that had been on our database for some time and said, it's good practice at the end of the day, and said, you know, we haven't touched base for a while. Do you still want to hear from us? You can click here to subscribe to these email communications, or if we don't hear from you after this date, we won't contact you anymore. We'll delete your data. So we went through that process. Some people took the action to actually opt out. Some people just never responded. That's fine. They were deleted or they were archived. So that's really important, because then that means that the stats that we get from our data are much better. We're looking at engaged stats. So we don't even need to start thinking about those that click to open. We actually have an engaged list already. So it's going to be much more in the landscape that we expect. Don't just think about single touch, think about multi-touch, think about overarching campaigns, which we touched on earlier. Use tools to help, and a lot of those tools will integrate with other tools like your CRM or social channels. So you'll be surprised what they're already integrating with and what they can feed into. Make sure that your content is accessible. Think about screen readers or color contrast. All that kind of stuff is very important. And a lot of these email service providers can help you as well. Make sure that you resonate. You know, as I talked to you, those that registered, you receive a link to our storytelling masterclass. So, of course, you can actually commission us to do the bespoke storytelling training that we do as well. Add social and forward buttons to your emails. That just helps people to easily and simply know how that they can forward it to their colleagues, or how they can share through social channels if they want to. Use templates at work. As I mentioned before, you can just do a bit of just go on a search engine like Google or Bing, and you can just see, type in something like, the best email templates of 2021 and or 2020. There are 2021 now appearing. So then you'll get some really good ideas of, get some good inspiration, and they usually tend to be nice examples that companies are doing. Always be testing, always be optimizing what you're doing, always analyze your data, because you need to be smarter. You need to be more efficient. We're very time poor. Think about EDI. That's equality, diversity, and inclusion. When you're doing your messaging, when you're doing your presentation of your emails, compliance, GDPR as an example, EU Communications Directive. I mean, GDPR, so very important. And it's just imperative that you are making sure that you're complying. There are services out there, the email services also help you. They force you to comply as well. They will help you to make sure that you're doing things the right way, and they sometimes stop you from doing certain things. Just don't spam. Be authentic, be truthful, be transparent, resonate. We have a blog post as well that I will make sure that's in the email that you get after this, with the recording for those that have registered. If I know that we've got people that are watching this at the moment on Facebook, so if you want to receive anything that we've talked about here specifically, then please do get in touch as well, and we'll send you the links. But we have a blog which inside it gives lots of different copywriting formulas, and some of them are like email blog headers as well, that will give you an idea and hopefully some inspiration. And then, as I mentioned to you, we've got the Art of Storytelling Masterclass webinar, which will send you. So what have we got next? So the next one is we've got a webinar on, is the marketing funnel dead? So this is talking about marketing funnels. If you don't know anything about marketing funnels, that's a great one for you to attend. Or if you are using them, we're going to be just covering the basics, and then we're going to be exploring about the status of marketing funnels now. We've got lots and lots of great resources online. You can go to our website and you'll find lots of resources, podcast, blog, marketing resources, videos, training, lots of really good stuff. Or our webinars are on there. Links to the on-demand ones as well are on there, as well as we have a YouTube channel. We've got a really great set of videos that we've only recently uploaded, which if you sit at a desk all day, there's some really great videos to help you to strengthen and activate upper back muscles and reduce wrist pain and just stuff like that that you can do at your desk. We've got live webinars like this that we're doing, which you can go and access and see. You may be able to see in the middle there, it says incorporate inclusion into your communication. So that's the webinar that specifically has got some really good hints and tips about what you can do with the accessibility of your content, as well as the podcasts that we've got coming up. And then we've got some other general social hints and tips. And we're going to be doing an email hints and tips in there as well. Those videos, the last ones, are normally about 10 minutes long, 15 minutes max. We've rebranded and relaunched our podcast, Behind the Fluff, because when you work in marketing, you are fluffy, apparently. And no one really understands what marketers do. So we've got this new podcast that is available on Google Podcasts, iTunes, and also you can access it through our website. We've got some very exciting things coming up soon, like inspiring the next CMO. We've got several new interviews booked in for that. And then also we've got some interviews with people in the industry. So it's going to be really, really good. That's going to be coming up in April. So any questions? I'm just going to check here and see whether we actually have any questions. Just looking over here. Oh, great. Yeah. Thanks so much. Oh, thank you. That's really kind. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So no specific questions. Marvelous. If you do need us, you can contact us on team@internationalbrunch.com. I hope that you've enjoyed our session today. I wish you all the best, and I hope you have a lovely rest of the week. Thank you so much for taking the time to attend today. Bye, everybody.